All right, everyone. Oh, geez, there's a lot of you out here. All right. My name is Charlotte Willner. I am Executive Director of the Trust and Safety Professional Association, or TSPA, and the Trust and Safety Foundation, or TSF. So another round of applause, please. I have been here at TSPA and TSF for about 3.5 years, and I actually did the math on this morning when I was practicing. I thought, that can't be right. Surely it's been much longer. No, 3.5 years, and the organizations are actually only 4 years old. Prior to my time here, I was working in trust and safety, so got my start at Facebook in 2007, switched to Pinterest in 2013, and then came into this role in 2020. What a year. Over my time in the field, I have had the pleasure of getting to work with so many of you here in this room. And as many of you know, if you know me, I am actually a huge introvert. And I then took a job where every year I have to give a speech to like 1,000 people, and I chose that. And so what I do to prepare is what any of you would do. I pace up and down my street, freaking out that I'm gonna have to give a speech to 1,000 people. And I was doing one of these walks a few weeks ago, and I met a friend who works in public communications. Well, I mean, he's good at it, good for him. He says, hey, you must be getting ready for TrustCon. I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm thinking about my speech. He says, oh, it's easy. Just tell a story. Oh, it's easy. Okay, no problem. So I thought, all right, tell a story. What kind of story? I could bring some stories. We know in this field, we got some stories, right? So maybe I could tell you about the time when I was at Pinterest, and we had an engineer working on testing our mass deactivation feature, and they thought, well, I'm just going to push the button because it's a test, right? And instead, we warned everybody who had ever posted this little guy. Yeah, and what I love about Pinterest users is half of them wrote in and they were mad about it, and half of them wrote in and were like, you know, he is naked, I understand. Like, or maybe I can tell you about the time I was walking along, and our HRBP pulls me aside in the hallway and says, hey, can I talk to you about something? And the thing she needed to talk to me about is I'd set up a meeting for my team in a room next to the HR desks, and on the little reader board, the name of the meeting was Unclear Erections. She just wanted to see if everything was okay, Maybe I could tell you about the time I was working back at Facebook, and we were doing a high-profile escalation. Our head of public policy, Elliot Schrage, if you know, you know, is just asking for an update. And I sent an email on my phone. I'm like, Gabby, Warren, and I took care of it. At least I thought that's what I'd done, but in fact, my phone sent, baby, Warren and I have taken care of it. We all have incredible stories in this room. And trust and safety is ultimately about those human stories. Behind every dashboard and KPI, there is a human story. Billions of people around the world go online every day to connect with each other, to share their experiences with each other, to earn their living, to find their life partner, sometimes to get onto a webcam between Dublin, Ireland, and New York City and disrobe, right? There are all kinds of stories. And over the last year, some people on our team have been working to capture a very specific subset of those stories, not the webcam ones. Now, you have all heard of TSPA because it's on the stage. You all applauded, yes. I'm also here to talk to you about TSF today. So we have 2 organizations. What you should do is agree to become the executive director of 2 nonprofits if you've never done any. I really recommend that. Now, our sibling nonprofit, the Trust and Safety Foundation, the mission of TSPA is to connect the community of trust and safety professionals all over the world. The mission of TSF is to promote a broader understanding of the work of trust and safety and to convene stakeholders, to share that knowledge, to engage in research activities, to improve and sort of drive meaningful advancement in trust and safety. And last month, TSF concluded interviews for a project we're calling The History of Trust and Safety. This project actually published last November an incredible archive. It's a library of 1,350, almost as many people as are coming to TrustCon. There's 1,350 peer-reviewed articles, books, book chapters, going from 2023 all the way back to 1980. Anything that's been written about trust and safety is in that archive. Megan Niddle's lightning talk this afternoon, wherever she's at, is going to talk about that. Yeah, shout out our research assistant last year. Woo! Yeah, give him a hand, give her a hand. Yeah, all right. Now, the other half of that project is producing a history of our field told by the people of our field. And we think it's important to have a history that's written by us for a few reasons. One is that it helps us see how far we've come. One is that, frankly, some other people are telling the story of our field, but they weren't there. So I think it's important that we tell our story. And perhaps most importantly, we believe that knowing where we've been helps us understand where to go next. And today I'm going to bring along some of those voices from those interviews as we talk about the story of our field. We're going to talk about stories that we tell, stories maybe we tell ourselves, stories other people tell about us, fundamentally stories that only we can tell. So let's just start with what the story is right now. Raise your hand if you feel like things are going amazing in the world right now. Yeah? Oh, yeah, I love this optimism, yeah. Like, who here feels unbothered? Is this like a low chaos era that we're occupying? The chillest last several weeks, let me tell you. Someone once told me that our toxic trait as a field is that we never pause to celebrate, right? We're just like moving on to the next crisis. And we all get why, right? There is always something urgent in front of us that demands our attention. But the hypervigilance that causes in us, it's a part of why we're good at what we do, right? But it robs us of the opportunity to pause and look at where we've been and make some choices about where we then need to go. It robs us of our ability to understand where we are in the landscape. So this week, I want us to pause and really allow ourselves to experience the moment, to see how far we've come, to know that that's what equips us to keep going. Because yes, the work never ends, we have established, but we're not just treading water. Every year we see advances in this field that prior generations of professionals would not have thought possible. For example, 10 years ago, it wasn't necessarily standard for a team to have basic image matching capabilities. And this seems wild now, but 10 years ago, you find one bad image, cool, you found one bad image. Congratulations, there's another 1.5 million out there and hope you find them, right? That's not what it's like today anymore. 15 years ago, we didn't have two-factor authentication. And now we're like, hey, listen, two-factor, it's like it's not the best. But like imagine, when I started in this field, we were resetting passwords in plain text and just sending them by email. Like, here's a new password, pepperoni1. Right? Trust and safety looks a lot different than it used to, and that is progress. Until recently, it wasn't even that usual to have engineers devoted to trust and safety at all. Right? So many times, you're doing your thing, hoping some new engineer would come in, and this was the time you're going to convince them, come on, it's a cool project, you're going to love it, right? Everyone had to like learn SQL and like run these janky scripts. The turtle was innocent, Now, we not only have technical folks, as a contingent of pretty much every trust and safety team, we have an entire sector of companies who all they do is build trust and safety tools. It's unbelievable. You couldn't have convinced me that many years ago that's where we were going to end up. The fact is the fundamentals of trust and safety are more accessible to every company of every size than they have ever been. And what that has allowed us to do is develop entire specialties within the field to focus way more of our time on the most pressing problems, on the thorniest issues. Trust and safety today looks so different than it did 15 years ago. Participant 19A talked about this in their interview. They said, I think from a technology standpoint, it's going to be much more easier where you wouldn't need that kind of heavy infrastructure to create a trust and safety department or create a trust and safety business because it's now well understood. And yeah, I mean, frankly, we're all here. We're like, yeah, we get trust and safety. This wasn't a guarantee. Participant 5A says, when we have engineers who truly understand the problem space, that exposure really helps you think about solving these technical problems differently. We'd be able to build more solutions that would actually work in the long run. Think of how far we've come in terms of our exposure to harm in the workspace. 15 years ago, most companies didn't offer any psychological protections for us. And it's not because your boss was like, yeah, I've got to traumatize these people today, right? That's not what that was. It's because there weren't mental health professionals who specialized in the kind of work that we do. There wasn't research about what could be done to help us. And today, not only are there specialist providers who are trained specifically to help us, there's actually research on what interventions really work to protect us. It looks so different than it used to, and that is progress. Think of how far we've come with collaboration. Last year, I told you the story of how back in 2010, at Facebook, we were cold calling other lawyers at other companies saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we shared photo DNA hashes? And this is just like the wildest thing any of these people had heard of. And they were like lawyers dealing with trust and safety. So there's kind of, you know, it was the weirdest thing they'd ever heard. Now, right, well, actually, even then, who here was working on child safety, I don't know, like 10, 15 years ago? Yeah, did we know each other? I mean, maybe at Dallas with all the guns, right? Maybe, right? But like, that's like 10 years ago, you had to beg somebody else to talk to you about CCI detection and mitigation. And today, this week, we're running an entire child safety track, which is sponsored, by the way, by the Tech Coalition, independent nonprofit, who ultimately, found their origins in those early conversations. It's easy to forget that where we are today was never a guarantee or an inevitability. One participant in the project talked about, I remember when we first started working at Facebook, people didn't really realize that people worked at Facebook. It was like it operated on its own. But it didn't, and it never has. And I think it's funny for as many of us who had that experience working in tech, we do it to ourselves, right? It's never operated on its own. Somebody built this. These advances didn't happen by magic. They're the result of countless nights, heated debates, experiments that worked or didn't work, relentless determination from professionals like the ones in this room. We've pushed forward with limited resources, with limited recognition, and never with a clear picture of exactly where we were going to end up. But we've made it this far, and it is actually pretty far. What's more, we're seeing growing recognition within tech and outside of it that trust and safety is a shared responsibility. If you'd told me even 5 years ago that we would have routine in-person events where we were learning not only from our peers, but also from civil society, from academia, from governments, and that they would be as excited to talk to us as we would be excited to talk to them, trust and safety looks a lot different than it used to, and that is progress. Now listen, I know a lot of you are like, hey, sure, okay, it's better than it used to be, but have you noticed it is grim out there right now, right? What if that progress is all we were ever gonna make, right? What if this is it? Like now we have AI, we're all gonna get replaced by the robots, right? Now that CEOs have realized they can lay us off, maybe, you never know. The job market is impossible. Like what if the challenges of this moment are insurmountable? What if the barriers are too great? It is easy for us to believe, not just in the jobs that we do, but frankly in the timeline that we occupy, that this is as good as it'll ever get. Last year, famously, some journalist said, this is peak trust and safety, right? That's what we were all told last year. It's only downhill from here. But here again, I'd like to examine that story. Peak trust and safety is a story, it's one we hear, right? It's one maybe we even tell ourselves. But if we step away from that story and look at what we actually know, it's a really different story. How many of you were at that first TrustCon? Kaofeng made you raise your hands? Yeah. So first TrustCon, 2022, we said maybe like 150 people will come. It was 350. It is a miracle nobody fell into that pool at the Sheraton, Next year we moved here, last year. We were here, we said 600. We got 850. This year we were like, we're gonna learn our lesson, 1,000. Yeah, listen, it's 1,350 this year, and I can see even the ballroom is filling up. And I made a little chart because this is the type of, this is going the direction that doesn't indicate to me we've reached peak, you know what I mean? Like that's not what that's doing. Looks like we just put the two first TrustCons together this year, it was wild. Last year, as you know, was devastating for so many of us. Widespread layoffs severed people from their teams. The people who were left had to do more and more with less and less. Last year at TrustCon, we gave out those little stickers, you know, the ones that Kao Feng was saying. And, you know, saying, I'm hiring. We didn't give out that many of those, truthfully. Those were not a hot item last year, but we tried. 2022 as a baseline, we were posting about 50 jobs a week, or 50 jobs a month on the job board. 50 jobs a week would be great, though. 2023, we didn't post as many per month. This year, how many jobs are we posting a month on that job board? Any guesses? 100 jobs a month. We have posted 600 new jobs in trust and safety this year. There are at least 30 companies here today who are hiring. And if you are one of those and you don't have the sticker on your badge, you better get yourself out there, right? Jobs are here. There are a lot of jobs that left. There are a lot of jobs that come back. Here's another example. As many of you know, we give discounts to folks who have been impacted by a layoff to come to TrustCon. How many people who had a layoff ticket last year, what percentage of those people have a job 1 year later? Any guesses? 20. Oh, well, we do better than that. It's 87%. And what's better about that, 97% of those people stayed in trust and safety. They found their next job in trust and safety. The community is expanding. This year, we've got TrustCon attendees from state library systems, from hospital systems, from bioscience research firms. We have someone from Wizards of the Coast here, like the Magic cards. The Online Safety Commission of Fiji is here. And listen, Fiji, TrustCon next year? Oh, me, right? Academic interest in our field is at an all-time high. Just last month for the June newsletter, we received so many requests from researchers saying, hey, we'd like to get information from trust and safety professionals. We want to study them. Put this in your newsletter. We got so many of those requests, we had to say, I'm so sorry, we've received too much interest. We can't include all of these links, right? We have someone here today actually who's doing his PhD dissertation on the evolution of the trust and safety vendor landscape, which I remind you did not exist a few years ago, right? Trust and safety is not in retreat. It is in transformation. And when you actually ask us, the practitioners, that's the real story. In our interviews with trust and safety professionals, something that really stands out is how optimistic we are about the future. And what's extra notable about that is that there are many words you can use to describe a trust and safety professional. Naive is not one of them. What is notable about the optimism, and we saw in this survey, is in spite of all these people knowing exactly how uncertain it is, exactly how dark it can feel, we still believe in the path forward. We believe there is a role for trust and safety professionals. We know the role will change, as it always has, and we know that we will change with it, as we always have. Though the project is called The History of Trust and Safety, we talked to our interviewees a lot about the future, and I'm going to share a few thoughts about that with you. Starting, listen, we're going to talk about AI. One of the most common questions we get at TSPA is whether we think all the robots are going to replace the people. And the most important thing for folks to understand is actually, trust and safety, we've been using AI for decades. From the dawn of trust and safety, we have been trying to figure out how to scale this whole thing, because there just aren't enough humans at any stage to do this, right? I don't have to tell you that we are dealing with way more internet or content from, sorry, let me try that again. This is your example. If you're going to mess up your speech, I did it first, so you're good. We're dealing with an internet that produces more content in a moment than any human could review in a lifetime. And we have always embraced machine learning as part of our way to grapple with that. Yes, historically, we have had to do a lot of human review, right? We do think, I think anyway, that AI is going to help us maybe not do so much of that human review. And that could feel like a threat. Or, when was the last time you felt like your team was overstaffed? Right? You got people just hanging around, nothing to do. When was the last time you were like, oh, great, more graphic posts just dropped. Can't wait to make a human look at it with their human eyeballs. Right? The reality is that AI is not replacing us. It is equipping us. It is allowing us to spend more and more of our time on the most difficult problems our field faces. It is protecting our human experts from things that, frankly, no one should have to see. Our interview subjects talked a lot about AI when we asked them about the future. This one talks about, oh, I don't just subscribe to the idea that technology is going to make all content moderators redundant. They say there will always need to be some philosopher, some human philosopher or tiebreaker or quality analyst to say this is right, this is wrong. The next one said, I just think it's so much better now for so many reasons. There's this separate from the very important issue of wellness for content moderators. That's one good reason to use it. The other one is that AI can tell you why they did it, which is true. Humans, look, we do our best. This person is optimistic about the future because they just don't see the need for us going away any soon. Time and time again in these interviews, this is what we heard. Yeah, listen, okay, we're also going to talk about regulation. A lot of our interviewees talked about the role of regulation. And to be honest, our field is quite divided right now on whether rising regulation is going to truly deliver online safety benefits, whether it's going to be a very elaborate box checking exercise. It's probably going to be a little bit of both, right? But what our interviewees observed is that the rise of regulation has effectively created a floor for investments in trust and safety. You can't like not do it, right? This person talks about, oh, trust and safety is going to get more important. It's probably going to get messier before it starts to clean up. That's relatable, right? But there's going to be a lot of people having to work on this. I love this person. She says, I'm expecting there to be a lot more, although it's causing a bit of chaos at the moment. And I do think that it's notable that both of them talk about chaos, because I think there is a struggle in our field right now about how to balance new compliance requirements and the actual work of trust and safety. I am very happy to say there are about a dozen governments here at TrustCon this year. And part of what we need to do is dialogue with regulators, right? No regulator sets out and is like, you know what I want to do? Make everyone do only typing up reports and no trust and safety. Like that's, I mean, holler if you're one of those regulators, right? But like, I don't think that's the goal, right? It is our job and our opportunity to partner with regulators. And TrustCon and events like this give us the opportunity to do that. Some interviewees are feeling positive because there are still so many unanswered questions. We still got big problems to solve, and people are feeling motivated to solve those. I love this answer. This is a participant who sees advancing technology not just as a simple time-saving device, but as a labor-saving device, right? Where technology can handle more and more of our work, we can turn more and more of our attention to the hardest problems of all. Most of the people we interviewed agreed on one thing. Trust and safety will change, but the need for trust and safety professionals will not. The core questions that people need to ask are going to remain the same. This person thinks the future of trust and safety is about building, right? In the same way that we have like architects, we can set that up online. This one was my favorite. I don't know what the outcome will be, but there will be an outcome. And then they say, in my kind of way, handling that is finding interesting problems to work on as they come. And that is so much of what trust and safety is about, right? We don't know what's out there. We know what's interesting, and we can follow that path. We live and we work in an uncertain time and an uncertain world. And what I'm here to remind you today is we always have. To work in trust and safety is to go in every day knowing that you do not have all the answers, and you're not going to have all the answers to the questions you find today, and actually maybe nobody does. And for as comforting as it would be to have an instruction manual, we've never had that. And we could be scared by that fact, but perhaps we should be reassured by that fact because we have gotten this far. And that knowledge is what equips us to keep going. Because who better than trust and safety professionals to navigate ambiguity? Who better than trust and safety professionals to find the best answer of, frankly, a bunch of not so ideal answers? In moments of darkness, I trust us to find the path, and we trust each other to find that path, not out of naivete, but because we have a way of finding a way, and this room is testament to that. We are still here, and not just still here, we're growing, we're learning, we are refusing to throw up our hands even when things feel murkiest. We aren't gathered here this week accidentally. Thousands of people over decades have brought us to where we are with no roadmap and no guidance, just a commitment to work on the hardest and most unsolvable seeming problems year after year. We have each other. The future we have is a future together. And that is why TrustCon is important. That's why our regional summits in EMEA and in APAC are important. That's why our local meetups are important. That's why TSPA is important. And listen, yeah, I'm the executive director of TSPA, so I'm going to tell you it's so important, right? But keep in mind, 4 years ago, we didn't have this, right? It was just some idea that people had, like, oh, we should like have a club or something, right? We are now a community of thousands of members all around the world. This year, we're going to host over 2,000 people at 3 conferences. And I had someone say to me last night, he said, oh, look at what you built. No. TSPA exists to provide a structure. Look at what you built, right? What you are about to experience this week is the product of this community. It is our program committee, it is our volunteers, it is each of you speakers who showed up, it is each of you people who are going to be listening to those speakers and asking good questions. I want to acknowledge a few people, and then we got to get this show on the road. First of all, our program committee. Nothing got to TrustCon without getting approved by our program committee. 35 members, so many, I have a second slide for them. This year, they gave individual feedback to every single proposal that we got. That means they wrote 1,500 individual reviews. And if you've ever done a performance summary cycle, picture that, right? Volunteer work, letting people know, here's what's good, here's what could change next year. We are so grateful to them. Volunteers. We got a lot of volunteers, so many, there's 2 slides. They're wearing the orange lanyards. You are gonna love on our volunteers. They are making this thing run, and hey, listen, just, I'm gonna hear about it if you're not nice to my volunteers, and I know how to manage an appeals loop, know what I mean? So, all right. I'm gonna thank the TSPA and TSF team. How many people are on the TSPA and TSF team? Hey, this is my husband. Spoiler alert, it's 8. Someone last year said 40. I was like, oh, bless you. Yeah, it's only 8. Well, it's 9, including me. All right, so we've got Kaofeng, Ilea, Crystalline, Maggie, and Christy are our full-time TSPA team. We've got Gabby, seasonally for TrustCon, bless. We've got Amanda and Maya, who are on our TSF team. They also help with TrustCon. You'll see them here today. Anything that happens kind of year-round with this event, it's these people. That's it. That's all. We use your money wisely. All right. And speaking of money, I'd love to thank our founding support. No. So there's a difference between supporters and sponsors. So we're going to talk about our sponsors. Thank you. We're going to hear from some of them. Amazing. Our supporter companies are the ones who pay for TSPA and TSF to exist, to have those salaries, to do our year-round programming, to support some of our summits. These are our founding supporter companies. They made a commitment back in 2020, wild times, to fund 3 years of TSPA, and they are continuing with us. We also have this many annual supporters now. I gave up on putting all the logos because they're all different colors. It's terrible, but here they are. These are people who every year find some room in their budget to support TSPA, and literally we can't do it without them. If you work for a company that isn't on this list, I would love to speak with you this week because it really makes a difference. I am going to thank our sponsors now. All right. How much money does TrustCon cost to do, folks? Over $1 million. That's right. Ay, ay, ay. So we're a nonprofit. We rely on our sponsors to put this event on for you. Our visionary sponsors this year are Genpact, Google, and Wipro. And you can clap. Come on. Yeah. Our champions are Cinder, Concentrix, Resolver. Our advocates, you better keep clapping, guys. We got it, yeah. ActiveFence, TikTok, Uber, Zevo Health. Our community sponsors, Booking.com, ESA, Intrinsic, KPMG, Pinterest, Nisos. Our friend sponsors, Check Address, Discord, First Source, Meta, Price, Save Children, Tech Mahindra, tell you about Mac. Oh, yeah, okay. All right, pause. Scholarship sponsors. We have 58 people here today who are on scholarship thanks to the support of SafetyKit and TaskUs. And this year, we added travel. So we actually had people fly in, unless they're on Delta, in which case, yikes. But This makes a huge difference to people's access for TSPA and something, or for TrustCon. And something you need to know is actually almost 25% of people here this week are on some kind of financial assistance. That's a discount. That's looking at where they come from in the world and saying lower rate for you. That is the support of Safety Hit and TaskUs. So thank you very much for that. We have a track sponsor this year. Tech Coalition is doing our child safety track. If you go to a child safety session, you can thank Tech Coalition for shepherding that. We have all kinds of amazing activities for you all this week, sponsored by all of these folks. They're on the signage. The cocktails tonight are going to be great. There's cocktails at TrustCon now, so get ready. There's also mocktails if you want to be responsible, because this is for work. All right.